What's going on? This is Pseychie, and as promised, here is something I had in mind for 50,000 subscribers. So today, for anyone that are interested, I'm going to go through my process when making my videos. And my goal here is to really just give some insight on how the backend and the amount of work that goes into the content that I make. So let's start in the very beginning. I start with a video idea. It's pretty self-explanatory. The video could be anything. It could be a video essay, it could be a discussion, or it could just be a plain old gameplay video like the one I'm going to talk about. Usually, video ideas just come to me randomly and I just write it down somewhere, and after that, I set my mind on it. So just keep in mind, I know there might be some people that are not subscribers of this channel. My channel focuses on gaming with a side of discussions and or video essays. Now, I don't claim to have the definitive best method for making videos. I'm just going to show how I personally do it. So the first step is actually thinking about what footage I would need. In this case, I will take everyone on a tour behind the scenes from my last showcase video for the baseball bat. It's a pretty plain process, but I'll explain it nonetheless. So I start by getting the gameplay footage. It's pretty easy, just play whatever game it is that you're doing. It's hard to imagine that when I'm playing the game, it technically counts as working. So in this case, the game is Dead Cells. After completing a run, I import the footage into Premiere Pro. Now, you don't have to use Premiere Pro, I just find it to be the general go-to for video editing, and it's fairly beginner-friendly, but there are other free alternatives out there like DaVinci Resolve. So after I put it into a project file, I cut the raw footage into only the interesting bits, or at least the parts that I think are interesting. This usually doesn't take that long as you might think, because I usually just look at what parts have the loudest audio, since it's indicative of stuff actually happening. But sifting through an hour-long run can still take some time. Once in a while, I add some footage to another sequence. These will serve as the highlights and will be featured in the intro. Yes, this entire process is pretty boring, but I usually just throw a video or podcast in the background. I like to think that anything you watch on YouTube should be a learning experience. It doesn't have to be strictly educational content. Maybe I'll put on like a downfall or drama video for a YouTuber, and maybe something I can get out of it is what did they do, what can I learn from this, and even something like Dream's Minecraft manhunt videos. You can kind of think about how he's structuring each video so that viewers watch for a long time. My advice is to always think what each media can teach you. The moment we stop thinking is the moment we stop being human. Though I realize it's a little ironic considering this showcase video doesn't exactly have much educational value. Once that's done, we get a nicely cut out run with only the good bits. I hit export, then save it to an MP4 file. Now, I don't have a professional audio setup. The mic I use is a Blue Snowball. You can get one for like $40. I then commentate over the footage in a separate room. I usually just sit in the closet for this since I don't want echo or anything like that. The thing is that humans are much more perceptive to audio distortions than video. If the audio quality is poor, like if it only comes out on one side, if the volume suddenly changes, if it sounds muffled, it'll be completely noticeable. For video, you should aim for 1080p 30 to 60 FPS. It's just the norm in 2022, at the very least 720p, but if you're doing memes or something, maybe you can get away with something below that. So once the commentary is done, I open up the audio editing software. I personally use Audition or Audacity. The first thing I do is to get rid of the excess noise. In Audition, it's called noise reduction. Then I normalize the audio by setting a hard limiter. This just means that the audio is not allowed to exceed a certain threshold. So in this case, it cannot exceed -3 decibels. If that bar gets to the red, it's no good. Again, this is something that I just learned from practicing. It certainly is weird hearing your own voice at first, but just like riding a bike, you get used to it. Unlike video, YouTube doesn't exactly have standard volume levels. You might watch a YouTuber that has a normal volume level and then you switch to another video and suddenly you have to turn up the volume bar all the way because they're recording with a quieter mic or something like that. So just like raw footage, I cut any pauses I may have had between speaking or any time I coughed or just repeats if I realized I'd said something that didn't make too much sense or I was just speaking too loudly into the mic. Since this is a gameplay video, it is unscripted. The whole idea I had when starting the channel is to improve public speaking, and I feel like it's getting better. So once the audio is done, export it as MP3 or a WAV file. Now you would think the next step might to incorporate it into the footage, but I actually make the thumbnail first before editing the full video. The reasoning is that the thumbnail and title account for 50% of the viewership of your videos. It's very important that you get it right, and I'm afraid that if I made the video first, I might rush the thumbnail since I will want to publish the video immediately, so I make myself take time with the thumbnail first. Again, I don't claim to have the best methods for making thumbnails. I have never taken a class in design studies or anything. Everything you see in this video, I just picked up from the internet. It's a great place for learning. So we just opened up Photoshop, and I usually do some thinking what I will want the thumbnail to look like. I split each into a general rule of having a background, subject, text, and maybe some icons here and there if it needs it. In the case of this thumbnail, I used a screenshot of the run as the background, and then I used Shinada from Yakuza 5 and stuck the beheaded's face onto it, then photoshopped the bat into his hand. Usually it takes a bit of finessing, but something I found really effective to make an edit look realistic is to just put a bunch of shadows on it. So once I have my subject, I crop a picture of my build and then stick some text onto it. I learned to put text on the left side of the thumbnail since the timestamp on YouTube can block text if it's on the lower right side. You can add any fancy font or styling to the text. I use an easily readable font, and then I put a gradient over the text, then putting a copy of that text underneath to complement the color and also give some shadows. In this case, I thought there was some empty space, so I just cropped some big damage numbers. Genshin YouTubers love doing that, so why not? Lastly, I put a filter on top of everything and turn up the saturation a little bit. Too much just looks a little weird, but a little is fine. It's just something to make it more eye-catching. There's a reason why Vanoss Gaming uses the same rainbow background for the last 10 years. Once done, I export it as a PNG and a Photoshop file in case I want to revise it. Alright, so now we actually start editing everything together. I start by doing the intro. The beginning of the video really matters in my opinion. It's just like how you are taught in high school. You start with a hook. This is just so viewers are less likely to click off the video right away. In this case, since the showcase video is the baseball bat from Hotline Miami, I decided to use Hydrogen by Moon as the intro track. I double-checked that the track is not actually copyrighted, as most video game soundtracks are okay, but just in case. I then just splashed some screen transitions between some cuts to make things smoother, and adjust the timing and speed to match the beat of the song. I usually aim for about 30 to 45 seconds of intro highlights. So after the intro has been done, I now have to sync the commentary to the video. This part doesn't take that long because I just have to scroll through everything and make sure everything I say makes sense given the shown footage. Sometimes I find editing mistakes or distortions I missed in the audio, so it's good to catch them here. In rare cases, it even slips through 2 rounds of checks and even makes it to the final version. So once the audio is synced up, I add music. I have a huge playlist of music that's either just lo-fi tracks I found or some of my favorite video game soundtracks. For showcase videos, I use tracks on the YouTube audio library, which is free, and you don't even have to credit the artists, but I do it anyways in case anyone wants to know what the music is. Now I'm just gonna straight out say it. 80% of the music on the YouTube audio library just suck. I just let a playlist of it play while I do something else and just download it if I'm interested in whatever track is playing. Some of the most recognizable tracks came from this library without even people realizing it, like the iDubbbz Content Cop track, or the music you hear from any 2010 Minecraft tutorial. There are some good paid sites out there for music, but I'm cheap. So once the full video is done, I export everything, give it a catchy title. In this case, I named it Health Bar Shredder. Now, onto the upload. I drag in the video, fix the syntax in the title, get the thumbnail, and paste in the description I prepared beforehand. The next step is everyone's favorite section, monetization. As most are aware, 8-minute videos allow mid-rolls. I usually put 1 or 2 depending on the length, and the mid-roll doesn't roll for everyone anyways. If you use YouTube Premium, creators can still get a cut. The only way a YouTuber cannot make money from ads at all is if you use ad block. Now, that's ultimately your choice. it's not like anyone can stop you from doing that. After that, check some boxes and then you wait for the video to complete processing. And this is where it checks for problematic content and copyright. And in this case, this just in, first time ever, I got a copyright claim on the music I used, except that's not even the track I used in the video. So this is a little frustrating. Since I already synced up the video to the intro and I really didn't want to revise it again, I had to do something about this quick. The copyright system really makes no sense. It says that only 20 seconds has been used, yet the entire video can't be monetized. Fortunately, this is only the drafting stage, so it's not published and I can just upload another version. So I changed the intro music to a track from the Yakuza games, then export again. It doesn't sync up nearly as well, but there's nothing I can do. This time the checks pass and the video gets scheduled for upload. So some closing words. There are a lot of things I didn't cover, like how to market your video, how the structure of it can retain viewers, stuff like that. Now, if you're new to this stuff, you might think, that's a lot of work for just one video. And yes, it is. Doing serious work on the site takes quite a while of dedication. I'd started dabbling in editing when I was in high school, where I would learn Photoshop to crop my friends' faces in compromising positions. Soon I expanded to Premiere Pro and other softwares, and it's been like 5 years since I started. Like I said, learning this stuff takes a while, and yes, some people are just naturally talented with speaking and entertaining that they don't need high quality editing. But unfortunately, I don't have that talent. The expectation of quality on YouTube is just sky high at the moment, and most of the time people forget that all content that you're watching is free content. I wouldn't be too discouraged if your channel doesn't start taking off until months or even years after trying. The truth is, it's just very hard. Just take a look at my anime channel. Only 1,000 subscribers after like 7 months. Shameless plug, by the way. One last thing I want to touch upon is that succeeding on this site is not purely skill. Anyone that says that is lying. You do need some resemblance of luck involved, and I will admit I got pretty lucky with this channel with having the growth it did. I personally seen some channels get like 100k subs in just like a couple months or 10 or 20 videos, which is insane. And it's not gonna feel fair, but that's just how it is. Some people just hit the jackpot with the algorithms and everything. So hopefully that gives some insight about my process when making videos. For those that are regular watchers, the next upload will be a big one. So stay tuned for that. And thank you again for 50,000 subscribers.